This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hi, my name is Peter Tomasi.
Hi, this is James Tynan IV.
Hi, I'm Dan Jurgens.
Hey, I'm Dustin Wynn.
This is Jim Lee.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Mark Hamill speaking.
This is Kevin Conroy.
This is Tim Sale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Batman, and you're listening to my podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the TBU Comics Podcast, Season 12, Episode 19. This is Ian.
This is Steph.
Theo.
And we've got just one comic to review today. It's going to be a shorter episode because we are going to be doing 3 episodes this month due to the enormous comic next week of Detective Comics 1027. And we just didn't think we could pair it with any other comic and have a reasonably digestible episode. But we're very excited about this episode and next episode and our final episode of the month, in which we'll also be reviewing The Joker Warzone with a special guest host. So stay tuned for our 3rd episode. We're also doing the Deceased cast this month, as usual. We'll be going through some stuff after the first main miniseries. So A Good Day to Die and Unkillables, the 3-issue miniseries. So stay tuned for that too. As an introductory question for my fellow co-hosts, what are we reading or watching these last couple of weeks?
Well, technically, I should be getting back into Princess Jellyfish. I was taking a small hiatus halfway through that one, but I am still reading that one, which is, I don't know if I mentioned that before. It's pretty cute. It's about a introverted nerd girl who comes out of her shell when a cross-dressing gentleman comes into her life, and it's lots of fun. And I've been watching a show called Mushishi, I think it's called. It's about a dude who goes around solving ghost mysteries. It's like a low-key X-Files sort of, but it's not scary. But anyway, it's really cute. That's been on my you haven't finished this list. So I've been going through my list of animes I haven't finished, and so that one was a little boring at first, but I think I'm getting into it now. And I think that's about it. The webtoons continue to dominate my life for the most part, but I'm not going to admit which ones of those I'm reading.
So I have been in Netflix mode the last few weeks. I've binged The Legend of Korra. Did that in a few nights. I've binge The Umbrella Academy Season 2. Got through that
was fun.
as well. Oh, it was very fun. Can't wait for them to announce Season 3. And then, of course, like everyone else, I've also gotten started with watching The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. Another show that is absolutely positively great. So if you're not watching it, please do.
Not if you're under 17, please. I just got done listening to the audiobook of Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising by Timothy Zahn, the brand new novel, first in the new prequel trilogy that takes place during the Clone Wars, so before the previous novels he's been writing and the Rebels TV show. Really liked that. I love especially how in the audiobooks now the actors are doing an impression of Hans Mikkelsen, who does the voice in the Rebels TV show. So that's really cool continuity. And I really like that voice for Thrawn. I also started reading Black Panther by Christopher Priest, finally, because Comixology did a sale where almost all Black Panther titles were free. So I just went through, got 62 copies of Black Panther, and I started them, and it's great.
Yeah, I think it was all the single issues, not any
single
of the
issues.
trades.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's 62 issues right there for me to read, so lots and lots for me to enjoy, and I'm excited about it. So that's what I've been reading and watching, and what my co-hosts have been reading or watching. Let's get to a little comic news. DC Fandom is doing a second weekend, or Saturday, starting this Saturday, the 12th, which should start the day after this episode is released.
Fandom, at least the second event, is actually a on-demand event, so it's not that time schedule where it starts and then you don't get to see it again until it repeats in that second phase. Everything is already recorded, so you'll be able to watch it as you wish. You can still make your own schedules on the website, but the times are all going to start at the same time, with the exception, I believe, because they're doing a screening of Man of Tomorrow. I think that's the only thing that's going to be starting at a particular time, but everything else is supposed to be on demand.
But the first week of Fandom had the announcement of John Ridley's Batman miniseries, which they haven't come out and said it, but it's pretty clear that Luke Fox is going to be Batman, because John Ridley said that Batman's going to be a person of color, so not Bruce Wayne. And he said he's going to focus on the Fox family. So that makes sense to me that it's going to be Luke Fox. And that's been the prediction for about 2 years, maybe a year and a half, since the whole 5G rumor. So this is no longer connected to 5G, but it's still happening. And it's a mini-series. So I think that the main Batman series will still feature Bruce Wayne and the main Batman line. There was also some revealed artwork from the one-shot Joker Warzone at the end of this month, which features Lucius, Luke, Tam, and Lucius's wife, and maybe Tiffany. I'm not sure, because it was not lettered. It just showed the characters. But hopefully that'll sort of set up what's going to happen. What do you guys think about this Luke Fox Batman miniseries that's finally happening in, I want to say, either January or February?
I think it's a good idea. It's a little bummed it's going to be a miniseries instead of the main series, but I think DC is a little too careful with any big changes that they do, even if they are temporary. So it makes, I guess, sense from a marketing standpoint that they're testing the waters first before they make any decisions for the main line. But it's a good idea, and I'm glad they're reaching out and doing stuff like that.
Well, I'm definitely waiting for this to come out. Big fan of John Ridley. I was actually waiting on the other history of the DC universe that was supposed to come out as well, that he was putting out, and they had placed on hold. But we do know that that's coming out. That was in the most recent solicit. So now we get John Ridley on 2 different books. So I'm stoked for both of those. I kind of see what DC is doing is probably testing the water, especially now that we're not going to be getting 5G, and they're going to see how fans react. I think the series will be a good one. I would have hoped it would have been more of a maxi series, but I think we're getting 4 or 6 issues with this mini.
4 issues, and my guess is they're going to be oversized.
Gotcha. So I'm definitely interested in waiting for it. I think it'll be another good look at the character, at the hero Batman, but just in the eyes of a different person. We should be used to this. Bruce Wayne hasn't been the only person to don the cowl. So this will be the first time though that we'll see a person of color, and we'll see how fans react to it. But knowing John Ridley's reputation, I think it'll be a good read across the board.
I think it'll be a good read. I think they've put... I forgot to mention Nick Darrington is going to be on art, which I'm super excited about. I love Nick Darrington's art after he did Batman Universe. He's also been doing some Doom Patrol with Gerard Way over at Young Animal. But he's a fantastic artist, and I think that'll really elevate the writing, which I assume will be very strong as well, although I have not read or watched any of Ridley's previous work. I am a bit frustrated because DC has known they've wanted to do this for a really long time. The rumors have gone back a year to a year and a half. And we have seen Luke in maybe 1 or 2 comics since then. If I were making a character Batman, I would either pick a really well-established character like Jim Gordon, which is what Scott Snyder did, or I'd pick a character and really build them up, which is what Denny O'Neil and the Nightfall team did with Azrael. I should also mention that Dick Grayson, of course, was built up a lot too, because he was, in the Nightwing title and he was constantly around. Luke Fox doesn't have a solo title. He's not on a team that's regularly appearing. He appeared as a civilian in Batgirl a couple weeks ago. He's going to be appearing in the Joker Warzone, which is a one-shot. Luke should be a major character leading up to him being Batman. And I think this is really frustrating because I love Luke. I think he's a great character. I loved him in Batman Eternal. I liked him in Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray's solo series in the New 52. And I loved him in Tynan's Detective Comics run. He's a great character, but making him Batman without any build-up, I think will cause a backlash, and I think that's stupid. DC should build him up into a character people want to see more of, want to see taking on bigger responsibilities. And I want people to share my love of Luke instead of being frustrated with DC's, whiplash character management. So I'm excited about the series, but I worry that it's being very mismanaged by editorial.
Do you think, and this is just me throwing it out there, that could have been a part of Didio's plan with regards to 5G, even though the buildup of the character taking over the mantle wouldn't have been as long as a Night Falls, but at least we would have gotten through some time with them building up Luke. I think the idea of Lucius being the new Alfred to Batman right now was kind of playing into that as well. So it's possible that at some point under Didio's 5G layout that we may have had some character build up to Lucius returning to Gotham again. It could have been happening under, with Castellucci's Batgirl issue, him returning to Gotham and eventually him building up to take over. But that's me looking at things in hindsight.
I mean, I think those are good thoughts, but
it's also an out of continuity miniseries, isn't it? It doesn't really. I mean, I understand if he was more in the spotlight. Continuity. Is it?
That's the impression I'm getting from the announcements.
I'm not sure either, because when they announced this, the announcement was it's going to change the way we've seen Batman forever. So it's almost as if it's in continuity, but at what point in continuity is it, if it is?
Yeah, my belief about 5G, and I actually think that 5G has a chance of happening. I think it'll be smaller than it used to be, but my understanding of what I think 5G would be like Flashpoint. It would have been an alternate continuity event. Actually, it would have been similar to what they're doing in Death Metal, which is in the future right now. So I don't think that 5G was going to be like Marvel's Dark Reign event, where all the heroes were replaced by villains, or it wouldn't have. I don't think it would have been like Marvel's all new, all different initiative, where most of the heroes were replaced. Sam Falcon became Captain America, and Jane Foster became Thor, and Ms. Marvel became Captain Marvel, and there was a new Ms. Marvel. Like, there was all these new characters. I think this would have been like Flashpoint, an alternate universe or an alternate future. So I don't think it would have been nearly as disruptive as people were saying it was going to be. And since it would be an alternate future or an alternate universe, I don't think that it would have been as much of a problem, because, in the future, why not let Luke Fox be Batman? But I think that if I'm right and this is main continuity, I want them to build up to why Luke's going to be Batman and maybe Tynan's going to do that. The solicits for Batman after 100 have been very cryptic. They've been very, mysterious, which is probably good. I mean, so there is a chance that they are going to build up Luke. I just feel like we should have been building up the whole time, and I'm worried. And maybe they'll prove me wrong. I think Tynan's a great writer. He's a great collaborator, and he could be building up, and I think that would be great. So that's sort of my take on what I think 5G was going to be and where I think this could fit into that.
Dream minds want to know.
Of course. Well, with that, I think very interesting discussion. Let's move on to our review for the episode. Batman number 98. Written by James Tynion IV, drawn by Jorge Jimenez, colored by Tomu More. Scarecrow and Riddler fight over chess in Penguin's underground hideout as Catwoman worries about Batman and Gotham under Joker's attack. Batman works on his armory as Alfred walks up, reminding him that he's still stuck in the dream caused by the drugs Punchline dosed him with in issue 95. Punchline herself sneaks up on Harley with a flamethrower, setting Poison Ivy's hidey hole on fire as they fight. In his mind, Bruce hears Alfred tell him what the difference between himself and the Joker is, and Alfred demands that he accept the reality that he is dead, and that Bruce needs to heal from that trauma without blaming himself or his family. Harley and Punchline savagely beat each other down, and just as savagely analyze each other's weaknesses. As the toxin fades from Bruce's brain, Alfred tells him to wake up and save the city, and he does, shocking Punchline by defeating the toxin much earlier than she thought possible. He responds with a huge, "I'm Batman," knocking her out, and calling his entire family to help, as Harley looks on. Catwoman announces that she's leaving, and invites the other villains to join her with the promise of making them billionaires. So Joker War has crossed the halfway point and kicked into high gear. What do you think of issue 98?
I mean, just overall, I loved this issue. It starts out, I don't know, I had a little flashback to just the beginning of, or I guess the middle of his great designs, whatever it was, the last one, the Dark Designs, where we had Riddler being a bigger part of it. So I was like, oh no, is Riddler still a bigger piece of this? No, he's just bored in Penguin's lair playing chess. But just overall, gosh, I went from crying to being shocked to just loving the way the art showed Bruce go from kind of young to old and battered, and it was a good issue all around. And Catwoman's coming back, which is amazing.
I thought this issue was terrible, just downright terrible. Wait, give me the mic. Thank you. Sorry, guys, that was my not so smart twin. No, this issue was absolutely wonderful. I loved every bit of it. It did kind of start a little slow, but boy, when it picked up, you just bam. And there were some allergy moments where I had to reach for the tissue, but the way it ended was absolutely positively wonderful. Great job by JT and the creative team across the board. Everything about this issue was great.
I 100% agree. This issue was everything I was hoping for from Joker War. The last issues, I've liked them, but they felt very set-up-y. This issue is payoff. It's payoff not just for the last 3 issues, but it's also payoff for all of Tynion's run with the Bat family estranged and Bruce grieving over Alfred's death. And it's so beautifully written, and the confrontation between Harley and Punchline is beautifully written too, where both of them analyze each other's backstories and talk about each other's weaknesses and what they mean to the Joker. And it's just such a exploration of Batman and Joker and their families and what they mean. And it's also just intensely emotional. The conversation with Alfred just makes you both happy and sad in the best ways. Jorge Jimenez, I say this every issue that he's drawing, but he is a star. He is an absolute star. He loves Superman. I think he loves Superman more than Batman, but he draws Batman so beautifully and so well. There's so much heart in the expressions. There's so much beauty in the composition. There's so much power. And he's also not afraid for the goofy. That scene where Batman wakes up and he knocks out Punchline saying, "I'm Batman," and Batman is just written in the cape. So it's just so huge. It is amazing art. It's just so rich and energetic and gorgeous, and the colors. I mean, Tomomori is a master of coloring, and I think he doesn't work for me with some artists. I mean, everyone loves him with Tony Daniel, who I think really gave him his big recognition. But I think with Clay Mann and with Jorge Jimenez, Tomomori just shines. His colors are delicate and subtle, but also bold when they need to be bold. And this issue is so well done, and it makes me. And it's not. It's satisfying by itself, but it also makes me really excited for the rest of the event, which I think is the perfect sign of a great issue. Just such a great comic.
Yeah, and I remember when you and I had first, finished reading it, and I was just like, Batman, bro. I mean, everything. I mean, we were actually threatening Scott, who did the review, that if he didn't like it, we were going to fight. That's how good this issue was. It was absolutely positively great, and I would say it's the best of JT's run so far.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I really liked 94, the end of Their Dark Designs. I thought that was a really good issue, but this is a payoff to that, and it's just so good. So some discussion questions. What is the best nickname for Punchline now? Harley gives her the nickname Punching Bag, and I think that's perfect, and I'm going to try and use that a lot now. But what do you think about that? And what do you think about Punchline in this issue?
I like the nickname. I still prefer Knifey Go Lightly, but I like almost like, because it's a disrespect thing. I mean, I'm horrible at remembering people's names, and I know it's just awful, but for Harley, it's a disrespect thing. Like, oh, punch bag, I mean, Punchline, because like I'm not gonna call you your name. I really liked their interaction. Like you were saying, they're psychoanalyzing each other. And Harley, for all that they're fighting, Harley is just trying to warn her. She's like, because at the end, she's just telling Punchline, he's just using you. You are going to be let down. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't think anything. I think, what was the thing? It's like, I believed in his heart and you believe in his brain or something like that. And it's like, he doesn't have any mind. He's just crazy. And it's just interesting that there's still like this, I don't know if it's female solidarity. I don't know if it's looking out for that, twit that you don't like, even though you don't like her just because, you don't want her to get hurt. It's interesting. I really like that part of her, that even while she's beating the crap out of Punchline, she's still trying to save her and warn her that Joker is just garbage.
Yes, I am also still a big fan of Knifey Go Lightly. I think that's the one that needs to stick forever. Yeah, but I agree. And even as, Harley decided, you know what, last time I went light on you. This time I'm going all out. Even as she was going all out on Punchline, as Steph said, she was still trying to talk some sense into her. But, we also got a different side of Punchline this issue, whereas she was calculating and logical in these earlier issues. I mean, and I guess it goes to the greatness of Harley the psychiatrist, in that she really set her off, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to do it by killing Batman myself, which she knew wasn't a part of the Joker's plan. So you saw a different side of her in that they were able to touch a nerve and really set her off. And you did not see that necessarily in previous issues in which she appeared. She was always the cool, calm, collected person, whereas now Harley was just able to just bring it to a side we hadn't witnessed before.
I agree. I think that there was so much character and theme revealed in this conversation between Harley and Punchline, and it really matches what what Batman is telling himself through his hallucination of Alfred, about the Joker mocking the idea of Batman's family and love and everything. The Joker exists to destroy and mock and cause pain, and Batman exists to try and save and help and lift up and inspire. And seeing those effects through Harley and Punchline, I think, is just really well done. I think James Tynion is a very smart writer, and he's doing some smart things with this comic. So it's not just what we'll get to a little later, which is the emotions, but I think he also has a lot going on in the comic itself about Batman and Joker and what fans think about these characters and what they mean to us. Do you think Catwoman's plan can work?
I don't know what her plan is yet, but I think...
Well, basically to bribe the villains to help her fight Joker.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I think, depending on what their stance is, because it's kind of like, when the whole world is ending, everyone's on the same team because they don't want it to go. And so I think at their core, even though villains are villains and they're out for themselves, they all hate Joker. None of them like him. I think it's decently safe to say that everyone's an enemy of Joker. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend, even if I have to pay him, right? So I think some of them will work. And they don't want to be down there. They're going crazy. And I think the payoff of getting rid of Joker, getting out of that cave, and, her offer of money, I don't think she's actually going to pay them. Or if she does, it's not going to be billionaires. But I think those all three things are enough for any criminal to do something.
Well, I definitely the reading ahead side of me says that yes, the plan is definitely going to work, because we've already seen where it's been hinted that Bruce isn't going to automatically regain his wealth back at the end of Joker War. So I could see that this is the likely way that'll happen. With Selina, basically pulling the initial plan that was supposed to have been done, which I would assume would have meant getting all of Bruce's money and putting it in her hands, and now she's gonna do the same and put it in Oswald and Edward's accounts instead. So I think it'll definitely work, and I'm sure we'll be seeing both of those gentlemen jump at the chance of getting as much moolah as they can possibly get out of it.
I'm going to be really interested to see how this plays out, because I love the idea of Catwoman playing to her strengths, her connection to the villains that we saw in Tom King's run. And she's a heroic character, and I love that she is, acting as an ally, even though she's having to make hard choices since she was sort of incapacitated and semi-captured by the villains for her own good. I don't know how much it's going to play. I mean, we were talking last episode about Killer Croc maybe joining Batman in defeating the Joker, and now it looks like we might have Penguin, Riddler, and Scarecrow joining to defeat the Joker. And I think it's quite possible to also bring in Killer Croc and maybe even, not Mr. Freeze, because he has to be frozen, but I don't know what Mrs. Freeze's reaction would be to Joker, since she's been frozen for most of that time. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But I think there's so many potentials for even just like showing them in a panel and saying, "Oh, Croc, good of you to join us." I think it's good. It's not my most exciting part of the issue, although I am very glad to see Catwoman returning. It feels like she's been gone for a really long time, because she hasn't been in... I don't think she's been in any of the previous 3 issues, right? The last time we saw her was in 94. So next question is, what do you think the best part of Alfred's conversation with Bruce was?
Well, the weirdest part was when he slapped him and yelled at him, but I think that, Bruce was just having such a pity party for himself. I don't think you should slap people, but it was very just reminiscent of that awful overused Batman slaps Robin thing, but
which I actually loved.
I know, right? I love it too. They used it in Super Sons, but it's just like the pep talk that he needed. It's like, I love you. You need to do something about it. Stop losing hope. He knows Alfred so well that he's able to have this imaginary conversation with him and not ever think that that's not something that Alfred would say, except for the slap. But it was just, I think my favorite just part is this the very end where there's that beautiful sunlight is coming in and taking Alfred away. Alfred is crying, Bruce is crying, and then just Bruce wakes up. And it's just that farewell, but it's hopeful and it's full of light. And it's just, I mean, it's beautifully done, beautifully written. It made me cry so much. So then when you turn the page and there's Batman with this giant Batman cape. It's just ridiculous. But I think that was my just favorite part is the last few panels there.
Yeah, it definitely had you in the feels. And for me, it had me thinking a lot about the discussions, whether on the cast or outside of the cast, on the notion of, can Bruce be Batman and still be happy? And what I took Alfred's conversation to Bruce as saying is, he's basically telling him, yeah, you could still be Batman and be happy. You need to make things right with your family, and you need to make things right with the woman that you love. And he's basically confirming to Bruce that, yeah, you can have all these things. Now get up and go do it. So it validates the notion that you can have a Bruce Wayne and a Batman who is happy with his life, because Alfred is telling him that it's okay to do that and he needs to do that. So that, to me, was my favorite part.
For me, my favorite part was when Alfred said, you need to accept that you aren't to blame for my death, that Dick isn't to blame, that your family's not to blame, that Catwoman's not to blame for Alfred's death, and you need to save the city. And I liked that it was acknowledging Batman's limitations. Like, of course, Batman is going to save a lot of people, but he's lost a lot. He's lost Alfred. He's going to lose a lot of people to Joker's killing. And I think that it's a mature approach to, perhaps a fundamentally childish or childlike concept of Batman, which, we talk about a lot. I mentioned back during Tom King's run that I love David Mazzucchelli's idea that Batman and Robin are kids in a lot of ways. And we've talked about how Batman is frozen in that time when his parents were shot in front of him. But Alfred, of course, is a father figure, and he's a voice of maturity, and I think that's really good to see Batman accepting his limits and moving forward, because if he's too stuck in the past, I mean, he's always going to be somewhat stuck in the past because he's Batman, but if he's too stuck in the past, he'll be paralyzed by indecision, and you'll end up with stories like Officer Down, where Batman literally sits next to Jim Gordon in the hospital while everyone else does all the work, and that's not the hero that I think most of us want to see most of the time. So that was very moving to me, and I will admit that when I saw Alfred with the tears streaking down his face and Bruce with the tears streaking down his face, I thought it was very appropriate, because I wasn't quite at that level, but I definitely felt that on the inside when I was reading it, and it was great. It's just a great moment. It's full of genuine and I think earned emotion. Our final question is, the battery and the bat bucket. Are these the best bat gadgets or the best bat gadgets?
They are the best bat gadgets on Steffi's list of bat gadgets. It was in my notes to talk about the bat bucket during the Catwoman special, and I forgot. But I would say the battery is my favorite bat gadget since the bat bucket. And I know that makes me low tech or weird or more liking the humor things than the cool tech things, but I think the battery is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know. It's the best thing that Tanyan's come up with, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely digging the battery. I'm not certain about the bat bucket, but I'm going to say bat bucket out of concern of Steph beating me up.
You don't have to.
But the other bat tech that again I truly appreciated was the sword out of the utility belt that we got during Dark Design. I'm still trying to figure out how that son of a gun came to be.
It's so unstable. Oh my goodness. He's a metal bender.
Yeah, metal bender. Ah, there we go. That's our Korra reference.
Yeah. Avatar reference.
Yeah, but I think what made the battery even more awesome was Harley's reaction to it. That panel, and some of the guys in the DC subreddit, there was just post upon post upon post of them trying to figure out what the hell Harley was saying, but that panel only exemplifies how awesome the battery is.
I'm going to go with the bat bucket because as much as I love the battery, the bat bucket was much more practical.
They had to stay in the car. They couldn't even take it with them.
Nah, they'll get it. Bruce will tie it to his belt. His bat belt.
One use, catching wifey puke.
But I appreciate Steph's recall that Tynan had promised a new bat vehicle and a new gadget every issue. Now, I think that was mostly for their Dark Designs, that arc, but he still has that impulse in his writing, and it's cool to see it popping up again. I do love Harley's reaction, as Theo mentioned, just, you do not call it the bat tree. And Batman's like, yeah, I do. It's so perfect.
And I love, there's like the little cute discussion early on where Alfred's like, how do you fit all this stuff in here? And where does it all go? And like, every pocket can save a life.
And he follows up the same way with Harley. You can only imagine what can fit in these pockets of mine.
My whole body's a weapon.
My whole body's a pocket. I thought they were going to use that to explain that weird outfit with no utility belt. It's like, oh, if the whole suit is a utility belt, how come I can see his abs? Anyway.
Well, I think we're going to see more of that in issue 100. All right, let's get to our rating of this issue.
I did want to mention one little thing.
Oh, yeah?
Because it was, you know how sometimes you connect things you read to other things in the past. And so when Bruce woke up, after the whatever concoction Punchline gave him that was supposed to have him out for days, and then whatever Harley gave him, which he should have been out for hours, and he just wakes up because Alfred tells him to. It reminded me of an X-Files episode where Mulder and Scully get stuck in this giant hallucinogenic shroom, and then they get out because they just realize they're in the shroom, and then they do the whole episode, and they get to the end of the episode and realize they never got out of the shroom because you can't get out of a hallucination just by realizing you're in hallucination. But then by realizing that they're still in the shroom and that they're still hallucination, I cannot say that word. That second time is what gets them out. Even though realizing you're in the hallucination shouldn't wake you up. Even by the logic of that show. Anyway. So that was just going through my mind, is how just because he's Batman doesn't mean he can just wake up.
So you theorizing that he's still knocked out?
He's still knocked out.
Well,
yes, that's
how about this? We know that Batman does that thing where he exposes himself to toxins and drugs so that he has immunity and resistance to them. So the fact that Punchline's calculations are wrong could be partly because Batman has deliberately tried to get himself stronger against Joker Toxin, and this is a variation of Joker Toxin. And
that
yes,
makes sense.
Saying I'm Batman is a silly thing, but I mean it's a great line, and we know Batman does these things. We know Batman prepares for poisons. So
that's true.
That would be my reading of this, beyond the the awesome of I'm Batman.
It's not just poor writing trying to get you out of the end of the episode somehow. Yeah, no. I accept that. I accept that Batman has had an immunity to iocane powder.
Exactly.
To think, all that time it was Shortcut that was poisoned.
They were both poisoned. I spent the last few years building up an immunity to iocane powder.
I think there has to be some unwritten rule at DC in the Batman writers' room that at some point during a run, if you don't have an I'm Batman moment,
You're fired.
yeah, you're fired. So that was JT getting his out of the way.
Oh, that's great.
All right.
Did Tom King ever have one?
Oh yeah, he had lots of I'm Batmans. It was kind of all the way through.
I remember I'm going to break her back.
Well, yes. They didn't always tend to be as bombastic. I think he did have a couple of really bombastic ones, but he'd also say things like, I'm Batman, you're Catwoman. No,
I need bombastic. Name written on the cape and everything.
Well, I just found out from him and his Twitter that was his idea to put it on the cape. That was an artist.
and I was going to say, you got to admit that was creative. That I did not expect that.
It's like what is
Neither
that called?
did I.
What typography where the letters make art? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready to rate.
All right, let's rate this issue out of 5 batteries.
Ooh, 4.5 batteries. Just because there's room for improvement, and I think it's coming.
Most definitely 4.5. This was an absolutely great issue. If we get more of this in 99 and 100, I don't want them taking JT off of Batman ever.
I am also giving this a 4.5 out of 5. It was phenomenal. I think there were a couple of slightly odd transitions, and I mean it's hard to tell, but in the moment, it's one of the best comics I've read in a long time, and I love it. So over on the website, Scott gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which
I'm still beating him up.
I have no idea what the math on that is, but 4.5 is the overall rating because we all gave it the same rating, and that's what we're going with. So 4.5 batteries out of 5. We'd love to hear what you think about this issue and this episode. Comment on the most recent episode page at thebatmanuniverse.net, on our Discord server, our Twitter at TBU_comics, on Stitcher or on iTunes, and we'll read your comment on air next time. And again, we'll have 2 more episodes this month, plus Deceased Cast. Our question of the week is, who do you think should be Batman who hasn't already been Batman? And this can be outside of DC and even outside of comics.
I just couldn't think of anyone because just everyone in DC who would be cool as Batman has already been Batman. And so the best they could come up with was John McClane.
That works.
From Die Hard. Just
that works.
Like, he refuses to die, and he's, I don't know, mean. I couldn't think of too many reasons, but I would love to see Bruce Willis as Batman. I think that would be freaking cool.
So we will replace I'm Batman with Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother trucker.
I am going to stick to the comic universe, and I'm going to stick with the DC universe as well, just so I wouldn't wreck my brain too much. We've all seen Clark, dress as Batman, whether we going back to Date Night or even going back to some of the Golden Age issues. But
there was a animated series episode where he was Batman.
Yeah, animated series, right? That's right. But there's two that's actually sticking out to me right now that I would not mind seeing how they would be in the cowl. The first would be Oliver Queen.
I thought about that one. I did think about that one.
Those two have such a great relationship with each other. They're more alike than not. Whether it's both being billionaires, whether it's both being non-powered, whether it's being cocky in one way, shape, or another. I would like to see how Oliver would be as Batman. The other person, and this is really out of left field, would be a deranged Hal Jordan. Because those two have always gone at each other, and those are almost polar opposites, especially from a personality standpoint. So I would love to see an episode. I would love to see an issue, even if it's Elseworld, where Hal Jordan is flying through the streets of Gotham as Batman.
I think those are really good ideas. I also went outside the comics because there's a couple characters that I thought were really interesting parallels to Batman. So one of them is the main character of Revenge, Emily Thorne, played by Emily Van Camp. And this was a drama/thriller that ABC Television put on. And it kind of lost its way in the middle two seasons, but the first season and the final season both had some really fun things. And the reason I connected to Batman, quite apart from the fact that someone actually calls her Batgirl in the series, is that she is always prepared. She's constantly making these incredibly elaborate plans where she's prepared to take revenge on an evildoer. And it's hilarious and very Batman-like. The other one I wanted to compare to be Batman is Olivia from the show Fringe. And she is someone who had very traumatic things happen to her as a child and grew up wanting to protect people from similar traumatic things. She is a warrior and a protector, and she has a really difficult time showing emotion, but she does love her family deeply. So that combination of things, I was in the middle of the second season when I watched it a couple of years ago, and I was just like, wow, this character I love, probably because she's so similar to Batman. So Emily from Revenge and Olivia from Fringe.
Seriously, how did you two come up with those ideas so quick? Do I watch too much TV to where I just got names and faces and on TV and screen just flowing through my head? You all come up with that just like that. I mean,
well, I actually wrote a whole essay on Emily way back when I watched the show.
You cheated.
I did cheat.
I was just thinking of I was gonna say MacGyver, but he's not mean. But I was thinking of people who use their wits and are strong-willed.
Well, MacGyver could be like the 60s Batman.
He has to keep the mullet, though.
Well, then he's Dick Bats.
That's true.
All right.
No mullet.
Please, no mullet.
I hope you listeners will give us your examples of characters you think should be Batman who have not already been Batman. So we do not want to hear Damian or Jason or Tim or Dick or Jim Gordon or Superman or
even Luke Fox.
Azrael, Luke Fox. None of these people. Do not answer any of these people. Answer people outside of the box. They can be from DC Comics, as Theo provided excellent examples, or they can be completely outside of comics altogether, like Steph and I. But none of this Damian, Dick, Tim, Jason stuff. None of it. That's cheating. All right. I'd like to thank our Patreons for supporting us. We have Rob O., Stephanie Mounts, Ed Grouse, Captain America, Johnny McCloskey, Robert Lewis, Ian Miller, Gerald Green, Real No Deuces, Donovan Morgan Grant, Brendan Roberts, Mary Garrett, Theodis Wright, Joshua Lappin Bertoni, Tim Garassi, Stanton's Grave, Hannah Garr, Austin Davis, and Donald Townsend. All of you have supported us on Patreon and made it possible for us to continue to host these episodes. We are very grateful to you for that. Again, 2 more episodes to come this month where we continue with Joker War and we celebrate Detective Comics 1000th issue of Batman with Detective Comics 1027. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. This has been Ian.
This is Steph.
And this is Theo.
And thank you for listening to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast.